In the early hours of November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, a baby boy was born who would grow up to become one of the most notorious and enigmatic serial killers in American history. His name was Theodore Robert Cowell, but the world would come to know him as Ted Bundy. Bundy's life was a tapestry of contradictions, a blend of charm and malevolence, which would lead to a reign of terror spanning several years and multiple states. Ted's early life was marked by secrecy and confusion. He was raised by his grandparents, Samuel and Eleanor Cowell, under the pretense that they were his parents and that his biological mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was his sister. This family deception created a foundation of mistrust and confusion in young Ted. In his early years, he exhibited signs of disturbing behavior, but these were often overlooked or dismissed. In 1950, Louise moved with her young son to Tacoma, Washington, where she married Johnny Bundy, who adopted Ted and gave him his infamous last name. Ted's relationship with Johnny was strained. He never fully accepted his stepfather, which only deepened his feelings of isolation. Despite this, Ted was an intelligent and charming young man. He excelled academically and was active in local politics and social circles, a facade that would later help him elude suspicion. Bundy's charm and intelligence led him to the University of Washington, where he majored in psychology. His handsome looks and charismatic personality drew people to him, and he appeared to be on a path to success. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy lurked dark and violent tendencies that would soon surface. The early 1970s marked the beginning of Bundy's killing spree. His modus operandi was as calculating as it was chilling. Bundy would approach young women in public places, often feigning an injury or disability, using props like a cast or crutches to appear vulnerable. He would ask for their help, and once they were close enough, he would overpower them, abducting them to secluded locations where he would assault and murder them. His victims were predominantly young, attractive women, many of whom were college students. Bundy's first confirmed murders occurred in 1974 in Washington state. Over the next few years, he moved across several states, leaving a trail of terror in Oregon, Utah, Colorado, and finally Florida. His ability to evade capture was a testament to his meticulous planning and his chameleon-like ability to blend into his surroundings. In 1975, Bundy was arrested in Utah for a traffic violation, which led to the discovery of burglary tools in his car. This arrest marked the beginning of the unraveling of Bundy's carefully constructed facade. As investigators delved deeper into his past, they began to link him to several disappearances and murders. Despite being in custody, Bundy managed to escape not once, but twice. His most brazen escape occurred in December 1977, when he leapt from a courthouse library window and went on the run for several days before being recaptured. Bundy's final killing spree took place in Florida. In January 1978, he committed a brutal attack on the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University, killing 2 women and severely injuring 2 others. Shortly thereafter, he abducted and murdered a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach. These heinous crimes heightened the urgency of the manhunt for Bundy, who had become one of the most wanted men in America. Bundy's final arrest came in February 1978, following a traffic stop that led to his identification. By this time, his name and face were known nationwide, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. His capture brought an end to a reign of terror that had claimed the lives of at least 30 women, though the true number of his victims is believed to be much higher. Bundy's trials were highly publicized, turning into media spectacles. Acting as his own attorney, Bundy relished the attention and played to the cameras, displaying a chilling arrogance. Despite his attempts to manipulate the legal proceedings, the evidence was insurmountable. Bundy was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death. While on death row, Bundy confessed to more than 30 murders, revealing chilling details of his crimes. His confessions provided insight into the mind of a man who had led a double life, one of charm and apparent normalcy, and the other of unimaginable brutality and evil. His detailed confessions painted a harrowing picture of his methods and motives, shedding light on the sheer scope of his depravity. Ted Bundy's early years showed signs of his future path. Even as a child, he exhibited troubling behaviors that hinted at his darker inclinations. He had a fascination with knives and would sometimes display an unnerving lack of empathy. These early red flags went largely unnoticed by those around him, masked by his outward charm and intelligence. In high school, Bundy struggled with feelings of inadequacy and social awkwardness, despite his handsome appearance. He often felt like an outsider, unable to form meaningful connections. These feelings of isolation and frustration would later fuel his violent tendencies. Bundy's time at the University of Washington seemed to be a turning point. He began dating Stephanie Brooks, a beautiful young woman who embodied everything he aspired to be. When she ended their relationship, Bundy was devastated. This rejection is believed to have been a catalyst for his murderous rampage. Many of his victims resembled Stephanie, a chilling testament to his need to reclaim control and power over the type of woman who once rejected him. During his university years, Bundy volunteered at a crisis hotline, where he met and befriended Ann Rule, a future true crime writer who would later pen one of the most famous books about Bundy, The Stranger Beside Me. Rule described him as kind and empathetic, a testament to his ability to mask his true nature. Bundy's first confirmed attack occurred in January 1974, when he broke into the apartment of an 18-year-old student, bludgeoning and sexually assaulting her. She survived, but with permanent disabilities. This marked the beginning of a spree that would leave many more victims in its wake. Over the next few years, Bundy's attacks escalated in frequency and brutality. He employed various ruses to lure women into his car, where he would incapacitate them before driving to remote locations to carry out his heinous acts. His charm and normalcy allowed him to approach unsuspecting victims without raising alarm. Bundy's ability to evade capture was partly due to his transient lifestyle. He moved from Washington to Oregon, then to Utah, Colorado, and eventually Florida, committing murders along the way. This constant movement made it difficult for law enforcement to connect the dots and track him down. In August 1975, Bundy was pulled over in Granger, Utah, for a routine traffic stop. Inside his car, police found handcuffs, an ice pick, a crowbar, and other items commonly used in burglaries. This discovery led to his arrest, and he was subsequently linked to the disappearance of several women. Despite the mounting evidence, Bundy managed to escape custody twice. His first escape was from a law library in Aspen, Colorado, where he jumped from a second-story window and disappeared into the mountains. He was recaptured 6 days later. His second escape occurred in December 1977, when he managed to cut a hole in the ceiling of his jail cell and crawled through the building's ductwork to freedom. This time, he remained on the run for over a month. During his time on the run, Bundy traveled to Florida, where he committed some of his most infamous crimes. On January 15, 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. Within the span of 15 minutes, he brutally attacked 4 women, killing 2 of them. His spree continued with the abduction and murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach a few weeks later. The brutality and audacity of these attacks sent shockwaves through the nation and intensified the manhunt for Bundy. His reign of terror finally came to an end on February 15, 1978, when he was arrested in Pensacola, Florida, after a routine traffic stop. This time, Bundy was unable to talk his way out of trouble. His stolen vehicle and suspicious behavior led to his identification and arrest. Bundy's trial was a media sensation. Acting as his own attorney, Bundy's courtroom antics were both bizarre and manipulative. He relished the attention, often appearing more interested in the spectacle than in his own defense. Despite his efforts, the evidence against him was overwhelming, including bite mark impressions on one of his victims that matched his teeth perfectly. In July 1979, Bundy was convicted of the Chi Omega murders and sentenced to death. A year later, he was convicted for the murder of Kimberly Leach and received a second death sentence. His appeals process dragged on for nearly a decade, during which he confessed to over 30 murders, though the true number is believed to be much higher. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. Crowds gathered outside the prison, celebrating the end of one of the most notorious killers in history. His death marked the conclusion of a terrifying chapter, but his story continues to captivate and horrify.